Good morning, good morning. Happy Saturday, everyone. Good morning, world. Good morning, friends. Good morning, family. Good morning, Salty.
Good morning, Joe. How are you doing this morning?
I'm waking up. I've been waking up for a couple of hours or so.
I've been up for quite a while myself. Been up for a long time. Yeah. So,
Yeah, and what's funny is I've had all this time on my hands. I've actually been working on other projects and saw that there were some documents dropped yesterday in Delphi and kind of
mhm.
popped into a couple of different chats where the content creators were going over them, and I just didn't catch enough of them, or I didn't catch them early enough to really get a handle on it. So I'm really curious to take a look at it
I
today.
didn't pop it. Yeah, I didn't pop into any of the streams that were covering it. But I kind of glanced over the documents myself, so I'm curious to get a good read on them. Because I'm working on a couple of different things as well. You know what I mean? So I was just like, overload.
Yes, yeah, and it doesn't take much in Delphi to get overloaded for sure.
Oh my God. I think I just needed a Delphi break after all the Holman stuff, happened and now that there's but I have kept up with the filings and so have you. We have reviewed, looked at them and stuff, but we just haven't really done a show about it in a while.
Right. Back on February 4th, the state filed their response to the defense's motion to correct the error. And then yesterday, the defense filed their response to the state's response to the motion to correct. So, I mean, we're like 3 generations deep into responses and motions already on the appeal. Oh,
Um, where is Pendleton? Is
Pendleton
that it?
is, it's near Indianapolis. I think it's on the north side of Indianapolis, if I remember right.
Has Rick Allen been moved there?
I saw a blurb from 2 hours ago on Twitter on X. Gosh, it's not
That's what
Twitter
I'm
anymore.
seeing. I just got
Yeah,
someone just sent me. I just opened something that someone sent me stating as much. This is a definite sign that people are starting to listen and take action. So he's been moved from Westville to Pendleton, I'm assuming.
yeah, and Pendleton is an old prison also, and it's not a bed of roses, but
Well, yeah, but at least it's not
perhaps.
Westville
Yeah, exactly. Yes, yes,
because that's so sketchy that they put him right back there where we know certain people or certain types of individuals work. So, hopefully, hopefully he'll be okay until they can get all this
yeah.
sorted out.
We'll take a quick look at that real quick. Boom.
Okay.
Indiana incarcerated database search. Here y'all go.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that. We have that in Florida too.
Yeah. So type in Allen last name, Richard first name, hit search, and he is all the way there at the bottom. Born September of 1972, white male. He is now in Pendleton Correctional Facility.
Good. I mean, if you're going to be somewhere, at least you're not in Westville.
Westville is one of the worst for sure.
Yeah,
And with Odinist guards, not that there can't be any of those in Pendleton also, you never know, but
true. But with everything that we know that went down at Westville, and you know what I mean, it makes some of us just feel better he's not there. Um, in my opinion.
projected release date July of 2071.
What?
Is that 100?
I'm sorry, I was reading chat. What'd you say?
Take a look at this screen. Projected release date July of 2071. That's not 130 years.
Well,
With the different sentences. Okay.
oh yeah,
There
yeah.
you go.
Okay.
That bottom one, projected release date April of 2120. I imagine most of us are not still going to be on the earth in 90 something years.
I am.
Well, I'll
Hey,
be somewhere on it, but I'll probably be
come
pushing
back
up.
as something. Oh my gosh. I think I've been on this earth a lot longer than I care to admit. Not like this lifetime, but like multiple. I feel like I've experienced a lot that I know I haven't. You know what I mean?
You kind of give that old soul feel for sure. You give off
Mhm.
that vibe. Yeah, for
Oh,
sure.
yeah. I could have been so easily an 1800 pioneer woman. Just, I could have. It would have sucked, but I could have done it.
Good morning, Dizzy. Good to see you in here. Happy Saturday
Yeah.
morning,
I'm
buddy.
taking a look at chat. Welcome in, everybody. Look at Frank's. Good to see you in here. Pokemon. And like, for some reason, I messed with my settings on my PC this morning. Like, just for, I don't even know what I was doing. And now, like, my writing is too small. I can't see. So I'm like struggling to see everybody. I got to fix that before later.
Good morning, Infinity. Welcome in. Oh, before we get started on the heavy stuff, though, let's take a look at an interesting video that came out a couple of days ago.
Uh-oh.
Boom. This is from The Independent.
You're not about to take me down another "we're gonna fall off the earth" thing, are we? Or the earth middle is moving around and stuff thing?
No, but if you go out kayaking off the coast of Chile, you might just get swallowed by a humpback whale.
Look, we kayak
Oh.
in Santa Rosa Sound. We don't have no humpback whales.
You do have gators, though. I have seen video of a kayaker getting the crap scared out of him by a gator that like jumps in the water right next to him.
Yeah, but look, we got a lot of waterways around, a lot of water things, but why would you purposely put yourself in their territory and take a tiny little kayak or a little skinny kayak? You won't catch me in no kayak. I'm afraid it will flip over and I won't be able to get out. And so
Absolutely.
I have never kayaked, and that might be, but I boat. I mean, I've been on, my dad is an avid fisherman, so we are always on the river in the summer and on the boat, the bass boats and all the things, but no kayak. We weren't a kayaking family.
Yeah, if you get trapped in that kayak, you're gator bait down there.
Yeah. Well, a lot of
Right.
them do it in the Sound, right off the beach, right? So you're a lot less likely to run into a gator there than you are on the river. But why would you go out into these deep oceans where you know they live to possibly be swallowed up by one? Like, the waves
Well, this
alone
is
could knock you over. And
absolutely. And this is a father and son. They're out kayaking. And I think this is the father that's recording this. And I think it's the son that's in front. So you see one whale, you'll see one whale, and then you'll see the second one come up, and boom, he disappears for a minute.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Chilean Patagonia. There's the first whale. There's the second one. Boom. Where'd he go? Where did he go? There he is. Woo.
Whoa. Well, he was able to get out of his car. Oh my God, that thing's coming for him. He done made him
me había
mad.
comido ya y que me había tragado, pero claro, yo sentía que quizás era una orca. Habíamos estado hablando de orcas poco antes, entonces tenía eso en la cabeza. Pero ya cuando salí entendí que claro, probablemente.
So he just said, I was thinking about orcas. Orcas are killer whales, right?
Yeah.
So he's well aware of the danger being out there.
Yeah, they know, but they took that risk anyway. But I wonder, do you know how, like, okay, one of the theories here, like, we have the bull sharks and such, and even in the great whites, they'll see people on like their surfboards and confuse them for food, and go up and try to get them. I wonder if that whale just like, I'm swimming along and I want to dive out of the water, and boom, there's this guy happened to be there, or did he get mad because the guy was out there? Like, was there a baby whale nearby? It was like, then it was like, get out of here. I don't know. That's weird, isn't it?
It is. It's strange, and I don't know what humpback whales normally eat, but it's like
not people, probably.
Yeah, I've never heard of it, not from a humpback whale.
Free Willy. Y'all stay out of Willy's home, damn it.
Era por curiosidad que se había acercado la ballena, o quizás como para comunicar algo.
He says that the whale had approached me to maybe communicate something. Like,
well,
he's into communicating with.
Yeah. Dolphins will do that, but
yes,
I don't know about whales because I don't live in whale country. I just live in dolphin country.
Tranquilo,
agárralo. Agárralo. Vete para la orilla.
Well, he was able to get out of his kayak, though.
Cuando volteo no veo a Adrián, a mi compañero, a mi hijo. No lo veo, ni veo el bote, entonces me sorprendí, me preocupé. Y después veo que sale a la superficie y después de él sale el bote a la superficie y después veo una parte del cuerpo de la ballena.
Agárrate de la cuerdita. Agárrate de mi cuerdita. Tranquilo, agárrate de mi cuerdita.
I think he just said we're going to get back to land and order gorditas from Taco Bell.
Oh my God.
No me tumbes. Eso, tranquilo. Tranquilo.
Y empecé a flotar, ahí sentí el miedo de verdad de que también le fuese a pasar algo a mi papá, de que no hubiésemos llegado a tiempo a la orilla y me fuese a dar hipotermia.
Yeah, he said he was afraid he was going to get hypothermia there at the end. So it's cold waters. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like really icy cold waters.
Yeah,
right?
Chilean Patagonia, I think, is pretty far down on this, on the south end of South America.
You wouldn't, yeah. I look, I'm on the Gulf, and I can't even get myself to get into that water till the end of like mid-May, toward the end of May. That's really warms up enough for me to really want to get in. So I could not do that frigid water. Shit, the river around here is cold enough. Sometimes I don't even want to get in, but. Like I said, I don't even get in the Gulf until like at least mid-May because I'll be freezing to death.
Yeah. And the Gulf side and the Atlantic side have two different temperatures too, if I remember right.
Oh, yeah. They're very vastly different. I'm blessed that I don't, and this is no shade on the east coast of Florida, but I'm glad I don't live on the Atlantic Ocean side. It's not pretty to me. Their sand is different. It's not the same. The Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, whatever y'all choose to call it. I call it the Gulf because it's my lifelong home. But we are the only ones that have that sand. It's clear quartz crystal that comes down out of the Appalachian Mountains. And so I'm blessed, I feel like, to live where I live. I wouldn't want to live on that Atlantic side. I don't think I'd like it.
That's actually my preferred area.
Deep and cold. Really?
Yeah, it is.
You were on, because you spent time down there, right?
Yeah, my sister lives in New Smyrna Beach, and she's just like 3 miles away from the East Coast, and then my son lives in St. Augustine and used to live in Flagler. That was the video we watched of Charlie last time. Me and Charlie on Flagler Beach.
Yeah, maybe I'm just spoiled. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'd go visit it one day, but I just don't think that I would enjoy it the way I do the Gulf. Because that's probably because I'm used to it. You know what I mean? It's just way different. But
the only thing that bothers me about the Gulf is red tide.
We don't get it that bad as people think. It comes and goes. You know what I mean? And there's factors behind it. We know all about it here on the Gulf Coast, and it's not as big of a deal as some think it is. Sometimes it can be, but when it moves along, you know what I mean?
Gotcha. So it comes in and out. It has its.
Yeah, it's not there all summer. Oh God, no. It's no. It's not even close to being like that. I don't think we'd have the kind of tourism industry we have all summer if that was the case, But no. And after the Gulf oil spill that occurred, it devastated our ecosystem here. It took a long time for that to recover, and all the work they had to do to make the Gulf again. It really sucked. I was not happy with the whole situation. None of us were, but it's not like that. And it doesn't affect the entire Gulf. You know what I mean? At the same time, because it moves. So it may be affecting, further down the coast, but not here, and vice versa. And it does not last all summer, but we know we're alerted when it's happening. We know what to watch for and staying out of the water, and don't go in the water with, cuts and things like that, because there's any body of water, in my opinion, can make you sick if you're not careful.
Yeah. These days, absolutely. With the level of pollution that we have. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you all were able to watch my interview with Megan the other day.
It's a very good interview, by the way. If you guys haven't checked that out, you need to, because it was great.
And I was a little bit, well, I was more than a little bit nervous during the interview, but I was also nervous afterwards because I was so self-conscious about being nervous. I was like, I know I screwed something up, and I did miss a couple of things that I wanted to ask her about. So I sent her a little email just thanking her for it. And then yesterday she actually emailed me back and she was like, you did a great interview and I'm here, you know, for whatever you need in the future type of stuff. So she was very gracious and very kind to me.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. I appreciate that so
She's
much.
very authentic, right? I got
She
that.
is. Like, she shared so much of her personal story and her personal life that, and you could tell she kind of got choked up a little bit there when we were talking about a couple of different things. I think JJ and Tylee especially, I think, choked her up.
Yeah, and you could feel that, and you could feel her energy, and you can, and like I told you, one thing that got me, and it may be just me, but I felt like I could see Tylee in her, you know, some of the features there, and it was just, to me, her authentic self and coming out and sharing her story is amazing and important, and it gives her strength, you know, so props to her.
Yes, and also props to her. So she shared with us that she actually either got divorced or decided to get divorced on Valentine's Day years ago from her first husband. So she said Independence Day is Valentine's Day for her. But also I was watching a panel with her the night before, and she was like 25 or 30 subscribers short of 10,000. And I was like, I guarantee you I'll get you to 10,000. And I was like, I hope. I hope. But look at this. I don't know if it was right before the interview with her or during the interview with her, but by the time we got to the end of the interview, she was up over 10,000. She was like at 10,038 or something.
I think it was during, because a lot of people went over and subbed up, you know. So, and if you are experiencing certain things, like, and a little backstory there, she talks a lot about the Mormon. Explain that, Joe, what she really talks about there on the channel. And if you need a safe place to go, I think that's going to be a place to send you to.
Absolutely. Well, she's got a couple of different aspects about her life story that can help different people. So you've got the high demand religion aspect of it, which Mormonism is, and she understands that. She's been out for 2 years now, and it can be kind of a treacherous space to be in, because Mormons that are still in the church will come after you. I would hate to see anybody going after her. That would just be absolutely ridiculous. But it is a high demand religion, and there are certain consequences that you're threatened with if you do leave the church.
Yes.
But she also focuses on bullying and on toxic relationships. She doesn't word it like that. She has a different other words, but you can see right here on the screen that I have pulled up with her. I'm going to maximize it so you can see. She has a website, and she does life coaching with people to help them work through those type of issues. And it's called thirdverse.com, third-verse.com. So that's her website. And if you want to go to her or check out her stuff, I mean, I would highly recommend it, because she's just an amazing human being. I mean, there's no other way to put it. She's just a gem of a human being. She has such positive energy. And to go through the things that she went through, she openly admits that she was sex trafficked from like age 7 to 11. And I don't know exactly what that means. And maybe in her book, it explains a little more. She has 2 books on Amazon also. Anyway, that's good, positive news. I wanted to share that. I think that's really cool that maybe we helped her get over 10,000, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad that that's out, because there I don't think people realize the amount of people out there who need support trying to get away from these high demand religions, right? So I feel like that would be a safe place to go if you were experiencing that, or if you're struggling with it like she did, because like she said, she was told to just pray about it, you know, and you'll feel better and all these things. And she continued to think something was wrong with her because she no longer aligned with them. And that, you know, so I think that it's a good place to go if you're experiencing that type of thing with any kind of religion. So
yeah, absolutely. And I don't know that. So you have to understand that the clergy, quote unquote clergy in the Mormon church, until you get up to the national level, like the Quorum of the 70 in Salt Lake City. Everybody below that, the stake presidents, the bishops, the assistant bishops, all of those people are volunteers, and they are not trained in psychiatry or psychology or counseling at all in any way, shape, or form. None. So to have somebody like her who is going through what she went through go to somebody who has no training in that at all can actually be a lot more harmful and damaging than if you actually just said, hey, I recommend you go to counseling to a professional counselor.
Right, like Jody Hildebrandt, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the Ruby Frank case and Jody Hildebrandt, you know, they were into the Mormons and the LDS, and Jody was that type of counselor, like Megan experienced, go home and pray about it. Well, Jody was the opposite of telling the men in the families, like if you went to her counseling sessions as a married couple, she blamed everything on the men. Well, you need to move out of your home. This was what she was telling Ruby Frank's husband. You need to move out of your home, separate yourself from your family. The problem's you, this and that, you know, and no real therapy there. Just a lot of telling you what to do kind of thing. And which then makes you feel like you are the one doing something wrong, right? And it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
the
seek
the
help
guilt.
outside of the church.
Yeah, right. But that's not just a Mormon LDS thing too. That's other religions also experience that, especially high demand religions experience clergy that counsel people and don't have any idea what the hell they're doing.
Yeah, look, I'm a believer, but I don't preach to people. I don't attend church on a regular basis. I haven't been to church in a long time, but I can sit right here in my desk and get the job done, right? I got really turned off by some churches, and I don't mean that to throw shade at churches, as I just didn't always agree with what I was hearing. I agree with some of the things in the, you know, the Bible and that stuff, but when you preach to me about how I should be conducting myself, and, you know, I wonder how many sinners are sitting here among, you know what I mean? It was just, it's a whole thing. But I'm not into that organized religion to the point where you need to be so stringent with everything. I don't have a problem with people who do enjoy that and follow it and live it. That is their decision, but it's not for everybody. And you could still be a believer. Even if you leave the Mormon church like she did, she's still a believer, right? She still
Right.
has her faith.
Right.
But
Right.
she has just developed her own way of it, you know, and I think that people can do that and you can achieve the same thing. It's like, don't tell me my prayers aren't being answered because I'm not sitting on a pew. That's ridiculous, you know.
Well,
I
I
don't
figured
know.
out a long time ago, and probably I should have figured it out sooner in my life, but there's a difference between being religious and being spiritual. Like you can be
Yes,
spiritual without being religious.
yes, sir. I'm a very spiritual person.
Yeah, I don't share that with people very often. So you're welcome, everybody.
You're right. I mean, like my spirituality, people would be surprised. I think like there's a lot of different layers to me, but you know, there's a lot of, I incorporate different things into my belief system. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't follow along with one or the other. Like I told you, I'm in the Bible Belt. We were raised up at Southern Baptist. We all know how they got, you know, for years. And I just didn't align with all that anymore, you know. And I mean, not that I don't believe in the Bible and things that are said, but it gets a little, I don't know. It's a hard topic because you don't want to upset people, but at the same time, I don't want to be told I am doing so wrong when I don't feel like I am. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Hypocrisy goes across several religions and several different faiths for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So
We got documents, huh?
Yeah, we have documents. So I'm going to start with the one that came out on February 4th. That was the state's response to the motion to correct. And I'm not going to go through it because we already did that on a prior live. I just wanted to pull it up real quick. where Nick McClellan makes his argument and cites a number of things. And we went through all of those things in detail, so we don't need to do it again. Says that Nick didn't need to be represented at a safekeeping hearing for one thing. It wasn't a quote unquote critical stage of the proceedings. Okay, Nick, whatever.
That's
lack
ridiculous.
of hearing.
That is a critical. I mean, that's such word salad, and it's like, that's so illegal. What do you mean it wasn't critical? You know, that to me, that makes, but that's Indiana and they get to do what they want. They don't make any sense.
The lack of hearing for safekeeping, and then the Brad Weber testimony. We heard about that. And we heard about something that made sense to me, that it only applies to quote unquote newly discovered evidence. So it'll be interesting to see if this response deals with that.
Yeah.
And then we have the Ricky Davis claim, and Mr. Baldwin went to the prison to visit Mr. Ricky Davis a couple of days ago. I didn't know that till I looked at that document this morning. I'm like,
know,
oh, crap.
right?
What did I miss?
I read through it a little yesterday. I actually got I got a bunch of documents sent to me yesterday on another case that I'll be covering. And then I was trying to read that. Then I read that part in this. And I was like, oh, okay, I got too much reading to do. I got a lot of reading to do. So, yeah, this is cool that we're going to get to go over it.
Yeah, it's funny. We lost a couple of viewers when we started talking about religion.
Well, they'll come back. I mean, we weren't, it is what it is.
We are who we are, and we're going to say who we are, and you can say who you are, and I'll say who I am. And if you don't want to listen to it, that's perfectly acceptable. I'm okay.
Yeah, I mean, we always start off our conversations with something before we jump into the actual content, because to give people time to trickle in and different things of that nature. So it is what it is, dude.
Hey, Lindsay.
I may have ran off a few of mine yesterday with my little soapbox rant, but I didn't care. I care, but I don't. You know what I mean? It's like either you're here for it or you're not. I don't know.
Good morning, Lindsay. Thank you for sticking around. We appreciate that for sure. You're definitely one of the people we like hanging out in chat. And then Ron Logan box cutter, and then the Stacey Eldridge expert testimony. That was about the headphone jack, and impeachment evidence during Sergeant Cecil's testimony is not newly discovered evidence. So yeah, Nick's word salad, his 10-page word salad got filed on the 4th, and then the defense 10 days later on the 14th files their verified motion to strike the state's response to the motion to correct error. So like I said, I haven't seen this yet. I haven't read through it in detail at all. So this is going to be first reaction. It doesn't have the little court stamp on the top right, which kind of bugs me a little bit. I like to see that up there for verification, but it did come from a trusted source. So I'm okay with it. The defendant, Richard Allen, by counsel, now comes before the court with his verified motion. I wonder what's different between a verified motion and just a regular motion. I need to hear that from an attorney or somebody that knows. Verified motion to strike the state's response, which we just looked at, to the motion to the correct error, filed on February 4th, for the reasons that follow. The state's response is unverified and without supporting affidavits, asserts numerous facts outside the record in violation of trial rule. Saturday morning, 59H2, which provides, if a party opposes a motion to correct error made under this subdivision, that party has 15 days after service of the moving party's affidavits and motion in which to file opposing affidavits. See Murrieta versus Romero, blah, 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 an Indiana Court of Appeals 2023 case. Ooh, that's a recent one. A motion to correct error under Trial Rule 59H1, unsupported by affidavits, presents nothing for a court to consider. So says they have 15 days. So do they not have until the 19th to file it? Could they not file affidavits on Monday and it still be valid? Why did Andy not wait that 15 days? And is that 15 business days or is that 15 calendar days? After service of the moving party's affidavits in motion. Why would you not wait for that 15 days? That was like my second appeal to YouTube for the copyright strike of HTC's Jerry Holman interview. They have 10 days to respond. And I forgot that there were 2 videos in that and not just one that were under the same copyright strike. So the 10 days elapsed on the first one. And I was like, woohoo, that video's back up. And I was like, oh, wait, I'm not going to make any announcements until the second video gets put back up too. Because like they still have time to file for the second video. And yeah, we could still do the first video, but so much better that we can have a rewatch party for both videos now.
Yes.
And we're going to do that.
I'm glad they got it back up though. I mean, because that was a little ridiculous, right?
Yeah. And I think Sleuthy is still fighting hers because they actually did file some type of legal action during her 10 days. They didn't bother with mine, and I'm okay with that.
Oh, they might have done that they may have done that just because she's sleuthy.
Right, exactly.
But she can handle it.
Right. So did they ignore my 10 days? Did they not file something in my 10 days because they didn't care about me anymore after their initial appeal and second strike? Or did they just get tired? Did they just get tired of fighting people on that copyright strike? I don't know, but we're going to have a rewatch party.
They probably got tired of it. Yeah. I mean, she, like you said, if she wanted to continue to fight it, the lawyers would have, would they have had to get an attorneys and all? Was it worth it? It's just a darn interview, and we have the right to review it and stop and commentate, which is what we were doing. But some people just want to be little. Never mind, I'm gonna try to be nice. Some people just like to be.
Steve, look, Steve's in chat. Hey, welcome in.
Welcome in. I saw that he's editing. Dude, I was editing videos this morning. I feel you there. And you gave me some great advice the other day in that DM, and I appreciate you. It worked. You know what I'm talking about. Some nice creator content stuff. So yeah, I love it when we help each other out. I've had people. I had somebody send me a huge document yesterday that I super appreciated, and Steve giving me advice and on a couple of things. It just sharing information with each other and growing as a community. It's beautiful to see. Versus, I'm not going to help anybody. I don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. It started with me with like Bob Motta and Defense Diaries, and then it's kind of branched out from there. And Jay was doing his own thing for a while, the shaming of Jay, and then went over to Steve and Publicly Buzzed and became a member and a part of Buzz Nation, and that's really cool. We hung out last night watching a movie that was just absolutely bonkers, absolutely bonkers.
I got me some really cool Publicly Buzz stickers I won one time.
I do too.
Do you?
I'm not gonna.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to wait till I get my Jeep Wrangler back, and I'm gonna put them on my Jeep Wrangler.
Oh, there you go.
That's where my Publicly Buzz stickers are going. Anyway, now we start getting into particulars. So he mentions the trial rule error. Not filing an affidavit within 15 days. In particular, on page 2, so we're down here in this paragraph now. In particular, on page 2 of the state's response, Mr. McClelland alleges that on November 3rd, 2022, the state received an email from attorney Brett Gibson stating that he would not be representing the defendant, herein attached as State's Exhibit 3. That allegation is based on facts outside the record and unsupported by affidavit or verification in violation of Trial Rule 59H2.
Sleuthy's in here
too. Hey.
Yeah.
Good morning, Sleuthy. I know other people have gone over these documents, but I wasn't able to sit in on those, so we're kind of going over them this morning and getting a fresh take from me and Salty on it.
Yeah, I just glanced over on myself. So, like I said earlier, hold on a minute. This dog's trying to follow me outside. It's sprinkling. No, go. I'm going to mute out while I walk
The
outside.
smell of wet dog in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, it's light rain. I'm just going to go to the pole barn, but she's not going with me. I'm going to make her stay inside. All right, I'm going to mute out so you can finish.
All right. Good morning, Trace. Good to see you in here, too. On pages 7 to 8 of the state's response, Mr. McClelland alleges the defense received the van video and any quote unquote any information pertaining to Ron Logan included in Mr. Allen's motion to correct error on January 30th, 2024. That allegation, Mr. McClelland asserts, is supported by State's Exhibit 7, a quote unquote discovery release. These allegations are based on facts outside the record and unsupported by affidavit or verifications in violation of Trial Rule 59H2. I'm learning a lot about Trial Rule 59H2. I may have to go look that up.
Oh, yeah. When things like that come up, that's what. Even in Idaho, I do that. Okay, what does this mean? I'm gonna go look it up now and try to understand it. I might or might not, but I'm gonna go try.
Yeah. On page 8 of the state's response, Mr. McClelland says Ricky Davis was interviewed by law enforcement, which he was, as shown by defendants' exhibits 4A, 4B, and 4C. But Mr. McClelland also says Mr. Davis requested a polygraph examination, which he quote unquote failed miserably. That's a pretty subjective term there, Mr. McClelland. Failed miserably.
Somebody failed miserably.
No exhibit of Mr. Allen's says anything about a polygraph examination. These allegations by Mr. McClelland are based on facts outside the record and unsupported by affidavit or verification in violation of Trial Rule 59H2. Similarly, on page 8 of the state's response, Mr. McClelland says that Ron Logan told Mr. Davis that he removed the cell phone battery from the girl's phone and left the phone behind, and that he took the girl's clothing from the scene and burned them. I have a question about that, removing a cell phone battery. Can you remove a cell phone battery from an iPhone? I thought certain iPhones you couldn't remove the battery, and I haven't had an iPhone for like 12 years, 13 years, so I don't know. Somebody's going to have to answer that question for me. Can you remove, in the 2017 version of the iPhone, could you remove the cell phone battery? Anyway, as far as this filing goes, nothing in any of Mr. Allen's exhibits pertaining to Ron Logan's confessions to Mr. Davis says anything about Logan removing a battery from any phone. Similarly, nothing in Mr. Allen's exhibits pertaining to Ron Logan's confessions to Ricky Davis says anything about Logan burning the girl's clothes. These allegations by Mr. McClelland are based on facts outside the record and unsupported. He's got like this on copy and paste. These allegations by Mr. McClelland are based on facts outside the record and unsupported by affidavit or verification in violation of Trial Rule 59H2. Okay. Thank you, Dizzy. Also on page 8 of the state's response, Mr. McClelland says, no evidence places Ron Logan at the scene of the murders. I think even us, like, keyboard sleuths know better than that. This allegation by Mr. McClelland is based on facts outside the record and unsupported by affidavit or verification in violation of Trial Rule 59H2 on repeat. Good morning, Possum. On page 9 of the state's response, Mr. McClelland says Sergeant Cecil was able to observe photos of the phone when it was found, and we saw pictures of a phone being found in the leaves. Some of those leaves were sycamore leaves. I recognize those, and there are sycamore trees out there. Sergeant Cecil was able to observe photos of the phone when it was found here and attached as State's Exhibits 9, 10, and 11. In addition to not saying whether Sergeant Cecil actually observed these photographs, this allegation by Mr. McClelland is based on facts outside the record and unsupported by affidavit or verification in violation of Trial Rule 59H2. Yeah, I'm getting pretty good at that. I can spit that out fast now. That's like, what, the 10th time? That's funny, though. He is quibbling over the words, and words in a legal document do matter. He says that Sergeant Cecil was able to observe photos, but it doesn't say that he actually did observe photos. That is a technical issue that we may hear adjudicated now. Maybe. Depending on if Judge Gould is hearing this or not. Anybody putting bets on if Judge Gould hears this, what's going to happen with this? Also on page 9 of the state's response, Mr. McClelland alleges that Sergeant Cecil's testimony that the quote-unquote log entry on Liberty's phone reflecting the headphone behavior could have been caused by a malfunction due to dirt or water in the headphone jack was based on his knowledge and experience as a forensic phone examiner. Sergeant Cecil's trial testimony about the possible effect of dirt or water in the headphone jack was based entirely on a Google search performed during a break in Mr. Allen's trial. The allegation that Sergeant Cecil's opinion then had anything to do with his knowledge or experience is based on facts outside the record and unsupported by affidavit or verification in violation of Trial Rule 59H2. On page 10 of the state's response, in paragraph 4L, Mr. McClelland says there is nothing in the logs, reports, or extractions that would indicate whether or not the phone had some kind of water damage because that kind of damage is not registered in the logs, reports, or extractions of the phone. Whether or not there was water damage can only be determined by physically examining the phone. Mr. McClelland is not an expert and attempts here to testify as if he were one, and that's not the first time. His geofencing or geolocation thing said that the accuracy was plus or minus 30 miles. Uh-oh, we lost Salty. Hold on, we got to bring Salty back. I don't see you backstage. Try again. Whether or not there was water damage can only be determined by physically examining the phone. Mr. McClelland is not an expert and attempts here to testify as if he were one. Every single allegation of this subparagraph quoted above is based on facts outside the record and unsupported by affidavit or verification in violation of Trial Rule 59H2. Again, wow. There she is. Welcome back.
I've been trying to get back in. I was trying to, the other day my phone let me chat, and a minute ago I went to type something to Steve about Gypsy and it threw me completely out. Poor Gypsy got scared and I was like going to comment about it, and it threw me out of the stream. I'm like, oh man. So yes, I'm back.
All right, welcome back.
Well, thank you.
We're hearing the repeated phrase a lot. Is based on facts outside the record and unsupported by affidavit or verification in violation of Trial Rule 59H2. Woo. That's like every single paragraph.
Right. And CH, you're right. The footnotes are the meat, just like in the Idaho investigations, if you look. It's crazy.
Holy cow. We just missed one on page 3. Oh my goodness. I wasn't even looking at the footnotes. Thank you, CH.
Yes. A lot of
Holy
times
mackerel.
they get missed sometimes. So I'm glad that comment was there. Thank you.
Footnote number 2 on page 3. The court might want to consider whether to hold Mr. McClelland in direct criminal contempt for publicly filing crime scene photographs the court ordered sealed at Mr. McClelland's own request. See Hopping versus State, 1994. Whereas here, the court has firsthand and immediate knowledge of acts demonstrating a clear disregard for its authority which threaten to undermine the integrity of the judicial process. Summary proceedings for direct criminal contempt are available. The power of Indiana courts to summarily punish for direct criminal contempt, while specified by statute, rests upon the common law. It is inherent in the courts. Alternatively, under Indiana Code, the court might consider issuing a rule to show cause why Mr. McClelland should not be held in indirect criminal contempt for his willful violation of an order of this court.
Whoa. Woo! Ooh.
All
That
right,
part, right? Possum, that part, this part.
now we'll go up to footnote 1, which was under Ron Logan's confessions, I believe. Oh, no, this is about the Orion database.
Mm,
The tip in the Orion database.
Go ahead.
Defendant Exhibit 4A does recite, Logan told Ricky Davis he burned his clothes in a fire pit and where it was located, emphasis added. See also Defendant's Exhibit 4B at page 3, burned his clothes in a burn pile, emphasis added. But again, nothing anywhere says anything about Logan confessing to taking a battery out of a phone. While the court might take Mr. McClelland's misstatement of fact about the burning of the clothes as simply a mix-up on his part, either McClelland is making up the allegation. Either Mr. McClelland is making up the allegation about Logan removing a battery from a phone out of whole cloth, or he has access to information about Ron Logan's confessions to Ricky Davis he has not shared with the defense. Dang.
Welcome in, all eyes. Yeah, you mentioned earlier about the battery and all that. I know a lot of people on Twitter were having a discussion about that, about being able to remove. It's not that easy these days. Used to, you could just pop the batteries out. Back then, you still could, I think. You know what I mean? It's harder to get into the phones now. I don't know about much. I don't know about iPhones, so.
I'm pretty sure iPhones are harder to get it out than an Android. I've had Android.
Right.
Most of the time, and those are super easy to pop the battery out. But I thought when I had an iPhone that I had to take it into an iPhone store to have the battery replaced.
Yeah, now these new Androids, I can't pop the battery out of my S23. Like my old phones I could, but I can't with this phone, right?
Yeah, but Dizzy says it can be done with a screwdriver, so she did answer that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's what I thought, Dizzy, that I saw somebody saying that you could do it. You put it like I see a video about it. I've seen so much lately, but somebody was trying to demonstrate how it could be done. And so she's right about that. I saw that. So it wouldn't take much. And he probably had a flathead screwdriver laying around that shed somewhere.
Right. They're probably Pokemon. There wouldn't just be marks. Would those be tool marks? let's not go down that road. Let's not talk about tool mark expert testimony.
I am the tool mark expert. I want to see that phone and I want to examine it. Damn it.
Okay, so either Mr. McClelland is making up the allegation about Logan removing a battery from a phone out of a whole cloth, or he has access to information about Ron Logan's confessions to Ricky Davis he has not shared with the defense. In either event, there is a reason Trial Rule 59H2 requires affidavits in support of a response to a motion to correct error when that response is based on evidence outside the record. All right. Yeah, CH, those footnotes, holy cow. I can't believe I was just skipping right through those.
Yeah, we learned a long time ago in Idaho reading documents to pay attention to those. They're really good.
So starting now with paragraph 3 on page 4, all of the allegations above based on facts outside the record and unsupported by affidavits or verification are crucial to the state's response. Because the absence of supporting affidavits or verification by Mr. McClelland violates Trial Rule 59H2, the state's response should be stricken in its entirety from the record of this case.
Wow.
In addition to alleged facts outside the record of this case without supporting affidavits or verification of the facts in his own motion, Mr. McClelland repeatedly misstates the law and therefore misleads the court.
It's been misleading for a long time.
And it's up to the judge to keep him in line, and we've seen how that's gone. Yeah.
Who keeps that? Nobody keeps that judge in line, so I'm so ready for the appeals process to start. And, going back before the same judge, trying to get these documents done and get this stuff corrected. And her's like, no. I think that all that should be handled by a separate judge. Because now I feel like she's very biased against the defense and is still not going to be willing to do whatever needs to be done, right? So I don't understand why they're allowing all this. I mean, I get it. She was the judge over the trial, but at this stage, it feels like another judge should be deciding this stuff at this point. But then would you be going against your colleague? You know, I mean, shit.
Right. And in the actual appeal with the other set of appeal attorneys, I believe that's going to happen. I don't think that appeal goes back to her, if I remember right. But I don't know. I'm purely speculating. I don't know. I know I've checked on a couple of appeals cases recently, and they actually went almost directly to the Supreme Court, the Indiana Supreme Court, for hearing of the appeal. So I don't know if that's what happens or if there's an intermediate appeals court. Anyway, case should be the motion should be stricken. Mr. McClellan repeatedly misstates law, misleads the court. On page 2 of the state's response, Mr. McClellan says the statute governing safekeeping orders, Indiana Code 3533-11-1, does not require the court to have a hearing to make this determination. The court can make this determination based on the motion alone. He repeats that assertion on page 3, saying Judge Diener was within the jurisdiction of the statute to make a ruling on the safekeeping motion without a hearing. This is going to get interesting. Oh, good morning, YBE.
So is that like an Indiana? Is that like an Indiana law, though? Do you know what I mean?
Well, he is stating state code. Indiana Code 35-33-11-1 is state code, state law, if you will, about safekeeping orders. So it's codified.
Does their state law say you don't have to have an attorney and we can just do what we want without hearings and all that?
Let's find out.
All right.
Next paragraph. But this cannot be so. There's your answer, according to Mr. Baldwin, anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Baldwin.
This cannot be so because, as set out in Mr. Allen's verified motion to correct error on page 6, under the next section, Indiana Code 35-33-11-2. So the above one that McClellan cited was 35-33-11-1. Baldwin is citing 35-33-11-2. The next section, Mr. Allen has an absolute right to refuse the transfer to the Department of Correction because then Sheriff Lesenby had only alleged the safekeeping request was to protect Mr. Allen's personal safety. How could Mr. Allen have exercised that statutory right, 35-33-11-2, if the court could make factual findings based on then Sheriff Lesenby's motion alone? He could not have, of course. And Mr. McClellan's interpretation, for the lack of a better word, we have some more words for that. Mr. McClellan's interpretation of the statute is completely unsupportable, and that's footnote 4. So we have footnote 3 and footnote 4. Let's look at those now, because that pertains to what we just read. The state's response, then we'll go back up and get to the next paragraph. The state's response does not explain how there was even any evidence before Judge Diener from which he could make a factual finding without a hearing to support his safekeeping order, because then Sheriff Lesenby's motion was unverified. And Judge Diener is the one that said there was a bloodlust of the public, and therefore he had to resign immediately after.
Because a few people reached out wanting the, because people reached out wanting information, which is the right, that he called that bloodlust. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Requesting public records and access and information as quote unquote bloodlust when we have 2 deceased teenage girls.
Right.
Where's the bloodlust really in this case, Judge Diener?
Exactly. I mean, what scared you so bad, dude? Did you see things in those documents? You're like, oh, I can't go against these people. I mean, it's just weird. It's just the whole thing was weird that he bailed the way he did. Was it because he knew what he was doing was shady? He's like, I need to dip out now and let somebody else handle this. You know what I mean? It never made no sense.
Well, he also helped Lesenby, he helped Liggett write the PCA too, right?
Yes.
If I remember right. And that's an ethical, if not legal, violation.
Yeah, right, Sleuthy? You think he knew he fucked up. I agree.
All right. Footnote 4, at pages 2 and 3 of the response. So this is the state's response to the defense's motion to correct. So the page 2 and 3 of McClelland's response, without denying that he knew Mr. Allen was represented by Brett Gibson. So he never denied it. He never denied knowing that Rick Allen had counsel. Mr. McClelland attempts to make much of Mr. Gibson not having filed an appearance for Mr. Allen. On page 3, for example, the state's response says, as of the filing of the motion for safekeeping, the defendant did not have an attorney of record. This complaint should strike the court as odd because Mr. McClelland appeared at Mr. Allen's initial hearing on October 28th, 2022, and filed the state's verified request to prohibit public access to a court record the same day with no service of that motion on anyone. Of course, even though he knew Mr. Allen was represented by Mr. Gibson. And on November 22nd, 2022, so about 3 weeks later, Mr. McClelland both filed his request for what became known as the gag order and appeared for the state at the hearing on his request to prohibit public access to a court record, gag order. But Mr. McClelland did not file his own appearance in this case until the next day, November 23rd. What? Almost a month after he initiated the case.
Yeah.
It is apparently enough that everyone knew for a month that Mr. McClelland represented the state without his having an appearance on file, but it is insufficient for Mr. McClelland and then Sheriff Lesenby, at the very least, to have known Mr. Allen was represented by Mr. Gibson, regardless of Mr. Gibson's not having filed an appearance. So remember when we did an episode back in the fall called What's Good for the Goose?
Yep.
Remember that?
Yep.
And that one was about state police saying people on social media shouldn't be sending out pictures of suspects side by side with the sketches. But then they did the exact same thing.
Yeah,
themselves.
and look, I was just watching another thing the other day about all the comparison photos of not just from social media, but law enforcement, of the people they looked into outside of the Odinist people, other people they looked into side by sides of those. You put the sketches out there wanting us to look at them, compare them to people we knew, and when people began to do it, we're like, oh no, stop it. Like, make up your mind. You want the help or not?
Good morning, pit bulls. Good morning. The other thing that is hypocritical of Mr. McClelland is the nexus issue. He stated in court, I was sitting in court. I didn't get to court but a couple of times. And on that August 1st hearing, they're talking about the third party suspect, Odinist, all that stuff. And he stands up in court and he says, the defense has to prove that the nexus for a third party suspect is DNA presence at the scene of the crime. But did they, on their part, on their behalf as the state, present a nexus of Richard Allen's DNA being at the scene of the crime? No, they didn't. Of course they didn't.
Nope. Of course not.
There's no DNA of Rick Allen at the scene of the crime. None.
And that's a problem for a lot of us, and as you get through these documents, when you get to Ricky's actual statements, oh my God, and I have a theory, and I'm not going to share it right this second because of where we're at in this part of the reading, but it's going to get crazier.
All right, so we got through footnotes 3 and 4. I'm so glad CH pointed that out. I am so glad.
Oh yeah,
that's almost better than the body of the motion.
It usually is, and that's why we love our chat. If we miss something, they can remind us.
All right, so second paragraph of page 5, on pages 5 to 6 of the state's response, Mr. McClelland says the presumption of prejudice from United States versus Chronic, a 1984 case, that looks like a federal case.
Every time that case gets brought up, all I can think is Chronic. It's like, where's the smoke? Sorry, guys.
You're all right. Mr. McClelland says the presumption of prejudice is only applied in cases of non-presentation throughout the entire case. Smith versus Brown, 7th Circuit Court of Appeals from 2014. Apparently, Mr. McClelland, oh my gosh, he's throwing some shade here. Apparently, Mr. McClelland is unacquainted with footnote 25 of Chronic, which unambiguously says the court has uniformly found constitutional error without any showing of prejudice when counsel was either totally absent or prevented from assisting the accused during a critical stage of the proceeding. Citations omitted, and Smith v. Brown, 7th Circuit case Mr. McClelland relies upon says nothing different.
And you know what? Even if Gall doesn't let them do what they're asking and correct errors and all these things, they're getting all this on record.
Right.
And that will be a part of the appeals process. Look what she did and didn't do. You know what I mean? Look at this. So this is all important to get it in there and get it on the docket, get it in the record. Because I think in hopefully it will help in the future, because we really need to figure out what happened here and because if Rick Allen's not the guy, justice wasn't served, and like I explained when we were talking about Idaho, there was just so much here. And every time they would bring up something new, it would just lead to more questions and not give us an answer. Now we had more questions, and things of that nature. And the DNA of Rick Allen's not being there. Well, if they were convinced he was there, why not test all of that DNA to make sure none of that belonged to Rick Allen?
Right.
But you might have known it would have belonged to other people that you just didn't want to implicate. I mean, I don't even know how to take it anymore.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, there's evidence.
I know here's the difference. So, 2017, because then they say in court they preserved all of that for future testing maybe and all this. Well, we have untested male DNA over in Idaho, and that's a big deal. Of course, the blood on the handrail, how old was it? They can tell. Was it fresh? Was it old? Was it degraded? Things of that nature. What was so wrong with the DNA in Delphi that you couldn't test it? That you didn't want to test it? Give me a reason why it wasn't tested. I still haven't heard a good enough reason why the blood in Idaho wasn't tested. Hopefully we'll find out more about that. But this is actual DNA at the crime scene, on the victims, right there with the victims. So it's a very important and crucial DNA. Why not test it all? And why not do it now with the advancements of DNA testing, right? Makes no sense. What are you holding on to it for?
Right. And I've said many times, and I will continue to say until you convince me otherwise, you can start out being an incompetent and having an insufficient investigation, but at a certain point in time, it starts to feel like corruption, like flat out corruption.
Exactly. And that's what my whole thing was with this case. Was it just a shoddy investigation and y'all were just trying to cover up your own tracks? Or did it at some point turn into a conspiracy, and it's going to be, like I said, reading what Ricky Davis says I've heard people say Reese, I say Ricky. I don't know how you pronounce his name, but that's just interesting what he had to say and about who he had to say it about.
Is that when Andy Baldwin went to go visit him a couple days ago? Is that what you're talking about? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Yeah.
And they don't talk about the Odinist third party people. They talk about other people.
Yes, Pokemon, both can be true. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like if you wanted to cover something up, would you send Dan Doolin out there to collect your sticks, a DNR officer? Yeah, maybe. Would you send him out to investigate the suspects? Maybe.
Yeah. Y'all look up The Reckoning of Carroll County if you haven't seen it, and you'll learn a little bit more about your Mr. Dan Doolin and his shadiness, what he's capable of. Like, right, I may have to do a show one night and just play that because it's so super interesting.
Oh, that's actually a good idea. That's actually a good idea.
It really is.
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh my gosh, I keep recommending it. Sleuthy turned me on to it a long time ago, and I watched it and I was floored. And it's very well done piece. It's it was before all this, and it's just super interesting. So I think that we will put together a show and we will play it, and I think it will open some people's eyes to Mr. Doolin.
All right. So the last sentence on page 5, and we have 5 more pages to go, people. In Chronic, that's the case. That's the 1984 case that McClelland mentioned in his response, that he cited in his response. Chronic explained that presuming prejudice would be appropriate in the face of a complete denial of counsel or denied at a critical stage of the litigation. Or Smith cited Chronic also. It really is not debatable that Mr. McClelland has at best misunderstood Chronic. It's not debatable. Have you seen the Peyton Manning debating commercials now where he's up there with like a high school debate class? And he goes,
I have not. I don't watch enough TV.
No, he goes,
I'm always
Peyton
on the darn
Manning,
YouTube.
He's Peyton Manning. So he's in a painting class on one commercial, and on this commercial, he's debating Manning. So he's up on the high school debate class. And he goes, she goes, you're not a debater. He goes, I think this might be my best subject. And she goes, I don't think so. I think you're wrong. And he goes, that's debatable. And then he high fives or fist bumps the high school girl sitting behind him. Anyway, that one cracks me up. Like the Peyton Manning thing is, I'm not a fan. I don't watch like their NFL coverage of the games, but that is a funny commercial right there. Debating Manning. That's my best class.
He's a pretty funny guy, though.
Yeah, because he does it so deadpan. Like he's and he's got good writers for his commercials.
Well, look, I don't follow football and all that jive, but I do watch Country Music Awards, and he's hosted it several times, and the dude is quite funny. I mean, just naturally a very funny person. So,
yeah, he gets it. He's way funnier than his brother Eli. Anyway, it's really not debatable. I thought of that word because Andy here uses the word debatable in here. It really is not debatable that Mr. McClelland has at best misunderstood Chronic. Our recent cases make clear that contrary to the Court of Appeals conclusion below, denial of counsel at any critical stage of a criminal prosecution is per se constitutional error. This is getting a little deep for me. I'm having trouble following it, except for the part that he says it's not debatable that Mr. McClelland has misunderstood Chronic. Anyway, on page 6 of the state's response, Mr. McClelland calls the van video, Defendant's Exhibit 3A, at best impeachable evidence. Did he spell it wrong? Impeachable? I don't know how you spell impeachable. Somebody Google that for me real quick. How are you supposed to spell impeachable? Because he puts a sick in there, which means he's direct quoting it from the state's response. And he's saying it's spelled wrong. Anyway, that is not so. Agent Pohl's testimony about a prior inconsistent statement by Brad Weber would have been merely impeaching. The van video is substantive evidence of when Brad Weber arrived at home in his van, which we all know was not at 2:32. Under the silent witness theory, video recordings and photographic evidence may be admitted as substantive evidence. Accord Carter versus State, a 2011 case. Impeachable. So he did spell it right. I wonder why he put that sick in there. SIC. More importantly, on page 6 of the state's response, Mr. McClelland erroneously asserts. Let's go to footnote 5 first, because that's at the end of that paragraph we just read. Accord Carter versus State, the 2011 case, and the silent witness theory video recordings. Also on page 6, Mr. McClelland, this is footnote 5, says Defendant's Exhibit 3A, the van video, is in the form of a YouTube link that is not identified as an item of evidence by an Indiana State Police number and therefore is an improper submission for consideration by the court. In fact, as Mr. McClelland must know, Mr. Allen properly filed the video file, that is Defendant's Exhibit 3A, with the court on a thumb drive. Mr. Allen also properly served the state with the exhibit in the same way. The web link was provided in Mr. Allen's motion to correct error simply for ease of viewing by the parties and the court. Oh, for crying out loud. Are you serious? So Nick goes, hey guys, you provided me with a web link. That's not proper evidence, even though he had a thumb drive or 2 thumb drives with that exact same video on it. And Mr. Allen is unaware of any requirement that his exhibits can be identified by an Indiana State Police number, especially when the video recording was provided to the defense, again, as Mr. McClellan must know, without such a number. So it's part of discovery. And the requirement to have it identified by an Indiana State Police number is ludicrous. That's ludicrous. All right. So that's footnote 5. We'll go back up to the last paragraph on page 6. More importantly, okay, so he says this is more importantly on page 6 of the state's response. Mr. McClelland erroneously asserts that a motion to correct error only applies to newly discovered evidence. This is important to me because this is the thought that I had that I thought was a valid argument by Nick, but we'll see what Mr. Baldwin has to say. Actually, Trial Rule 59H, by its own terms, provides for motions to correct error based upon evidence outside the record. Ooh. The rule says nothing about newly discovered evidence. Defendant's Exhibit 3A, the van video, is evidence outside the record. Wow. And Mr. McClellan has no answer to Mr. Allen's claim under Napoo versus Illinois 1959 case.
How in the world can they say that video is out? What now?
So you remember when we went over the state's response to the motion to correct error, and I had a problem with the phrase newly discovered evidence. Yeah. Because this was supposedly stuff that was already provided to the defense team in discovery. So how did they miss it? Did they miss it because they just had a voluminous amount of discovery to go through and they just missed it? Or they didn't feel like it was
discovered by the prosecution or the defense? Are they alleging? That's what I want to know.
They're not alleging it. The defense right here is not alleging that it has to be newly discovered evidence. They're saying trial rule.
It is.
So Nick said it was. Nick said it can only be newly discovered evidence. But Andy here is saying that the trial rule says that it can be based on evidence outside the record, and he's saying that van video never got entered into the record. So it is evidence outside the record, is what he's saying. So it is admissible as a part of the motion to correct.
So my question is, though, did the prosecution ever turn it over to them at some point? They did, but when? You know, and we hear from Ann Taylor even, and with Delphi attorneys, all these terabytes of data. And I understand it takes a long time to go through all of that. And maybe these prosecutors need to get really better about labeling what we're going to be, presenting here. Because I'm telling you, instead of walking up and handing Weber a subpoena, I said, let's play this video. I don't understand how they missed that video unless McClellan had it buried so far and with a YouTube link that didn't work and things like that. You know what I mean?
All right.
Which is not cool.
Let's see. Sleuthy says he's going to talk about that more. So let's get into that more.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll mute out now. Listen.
You're fine. You're fine. I like when you ask questions and then Mr. Baldwin answers them for you. Maybe you should have been on the defense team. Then you could ask all those questions.
I'm saying I would have had a lot of questions, and I would have I'd have put together a jam up team right here out of these chats.
All right. So, Mr. McClellan has no answer to Mr. Allen's claim under Napoo versus Illinois 1959 case that from the van video in his possession, Mr. McClellan knew or should have known that Brad Weber's testimony, critical to the state's case as presented to the jury, and we know that Brad Weber got up on the stand and testified towards the end of the trial, that he testified that he arrived home in his van about 2:30 p.m. on February 13, 2017, before Libby's cell phone stopped moving at 2:32 p.m. And he knew that testimony was false. And Mr. McClellan, sub-item number 2, did nothing to correct Mr. Weber's testimony. Napoo, that case versus Illinois, a conviction must fall when the state, although not soliciting false evidence, allows it to go uncorrected when it appears. See also Savak versus Hardison, a 2011 Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals case, quote unquote, from that Savak versus Hardison case, it is irrelevant whether the defense knew about the false testimony and failed to object or cross-examine the witness. Whew, this is powerful right here. I'm going to read that one more time. It is irrelevant whether the defense knew about the false testimony and failed to object or cross-examine the witness, because defendants cannot waive the freestanding ethical and constitutional obligation of the prosecutor as a representative of the government to protect the integrity of the court and the criminal justice system. So that burden is clearly on the state and clearly on McClellan to correct the record of Brad Weber's false testimony. Boom. Savak versus Hardison, 2011 Ninth Circuit Court case. Everything above about Defendant's Exhibit 3A, being the van video, applies equally to Defendant's Exhibit 3E, which is the FBI subject information sheet for Brad Weber. Oh, there's an FBI subject information sheet for Brad Weber, which shows Mr. Weber's cell phone first began pinging at his family's house at 2:50 p.m. on February 13th, 2017. So that coincides exactly with the video and exactly what I said, because he's seen that video that we watched. His van is way across the road, and that camera is like pointed off at an angle, and so it's hard to tell, but that's a gravel road, and it's probably going to take him 4 to 5 minutes after 2:44 p.m., which is when he's seen on that video, to get to his actual house. And that confirms exactly my suspicion. 2:50 p.m. on February 13, 2017. On page 17, or on page 7 of the state's response, Mr. McClellan says the subject information sheet for Mr. Weber is not newly discovered evidence and at best impeachable. He does the sick again after that, impeachable. Evidence. Defendant's Exhibit 3E is substantive evidence of when Mr. Weber returned home in his van, and because it was in the state's possession, Mr. McClellan either knew or should have known Mr. Weber's testimony that he returned home about 2:30 was false. And as with the van video, Mr. McClellan did nothing to correct Mr. Weber's false testimony. Wowzers, Penny. Mr. McClellan. So footnote 6 at the end of that paragraph that we just read. Mr. McClellan seems to be under the impression. I love how he's like taking pot shots at him. Oh, I forgot the one that was all the way up here. I forgot the very last sentence on one of those footnotes. Oh yeah, footnote 4 from page 5. Then it is insufficient. This is the very end of the footnote, and I didn't read the last sentence. It is insufficient for Mr. McClellan and then Sheriff Lesenby, at the very least, to have known Mr. Allen was represented by Mr. Gibson, regardless of Mr. Gibson's not having filed an appearance. A somewhat worn saying about glass houses should come to mind. I don't think Nick knows about glass houses. I don't think he does. All right, so now we're down to footnote number 6 on page 7. Mr. McClellan seems to be under the misimpression that all his evidence is substantive. I've been saying this since that August 1st hearing. I have been saying this since August 1st, 2024, when I really started to understand more about this case and about Nick and seeing him in court and his presentations and his arguments in court. Mr. McClellan seems to be under the misimpression that all his evidence is substantive, while contradictory evidence presented by the defense is merely impeachable. Sick again. This is of a piece with his idea that actual cell phone data showing headphones were plugged into and unplugged from Libby's cell phone hours after 2:32 p.m. indicates that data was caused by dirt or water damage, all because that data would otherwise disprove the entire case he presented, and everyone is to assume that case must have accurately portrayed what happened. See state's response at page 9, subparagraph 4. I have been saying that from that day that I was in court, that first time that I went to court. Mr. McClellan, I'm going to read that one more time just because I need to for my own peace of mind. Mr. McClellan seems to be under the misimpression that all his evidence is substantive while contradictory evidence presented by the defense is merely impeachable. No. All right, page 8. We're getting there. Finally, the one affidavit Mr. McClellan does have supporting the state's response is State's Exhibit 5, executed by Tobe Lesenby. The problem with that is Lesenby's affidavit directly contradicts at least twice his sworn testimony at the safekeeping hearing held on June 15, 2023. First, directly contradicts at least twice. First, in his affidavit, Lesenby says that Mr. Allen was transferred to the White County Jail on October 28, 2022 because of overcrowding at the Carroll County Jail, State's Exhibit 5 at paragraph 4. At the safekeeping hearing in June of 2023, Lesenby explained Mr. Allen's transfer to the White County as follows. Question, and so tell the court what arrangements you've made to have him placed in White County. Answer, just a matter of simply having direct communication with Sheriff Bill Brooks and explaining my concerns of potential safety and security of our facility and ask him if he could temporarily hold Mr. Allen for us. This says nothing about overcrowding. Nothing. That's about safety of the facility. Question.
And what did
Okay.
they expect? I mean, did they expect folks to come down there and try to burn the place down to get him out, or come down there to jump on him and hurt him for harming girls? I mean, which is it here?
Well, you know, after
y'all so terrified over there.
After Judge Dina recused himself, the bloodthirsty crowd had nowhere to go but to the Carroll County Jail.
True that.
Question. Okay. Were you confident that Mr. Brooks and his facility was adequate to hold him on a temporary basis at the time? Yes. So that says nothing about overcrowding. TR at 16. There is not a word about overcrowding at the Carroll County Jail being the reason for Mr. Allen's transfer to the White County Jail. In his affidavit, Lesenby also says that Judge Diener at no time gave me legal advice on the motion pertaining to safekeeping. Ooh, we know better now. We know better. In the first instance, Lesenby is not competent to say whether Judge Diener gave him legal advice. In the second, Lesenby unambiguously said Judge Diener adjusted the language in Lesenby's safekeeping motion. Question. All right. And is that motion that I've just alluded to that was filed by you, signed by you, and filed back in November of 2022? Yes, sir. Did you draft this motion yourself? Answer. Actually, I had presented a similar motion to request, I should say, to the court. And as I recall, the court had actually come up or provided this particular document. Okay, so let me see if I can ask a more direct question. Did you prepare that motion in your office on a computer, essentially? I prepared a similar motion to this. Again, the wording was adjusted by the court. That's not called contradicting. That's called lying.
The wording was adjusted by the court?
That's called lying. That's not, I mean, that's not just contradicting. That's lying.
Look, I can't even with these people anymore. I mean, they're so ridiculous.
I've had a certain feeling about Tobe Lesenby since long before this trial. I ran into him in Carroll County a few times on other issues, and I've had a certain feeling about him, but this confirms that gut feel that I had about him, and the way that there's a reason why Tony Liggett is the county sheriff now and was handpicked by Lesenby to be the next sheriff. Once Lesenby ran out of re-election terms. And now he's the assistant sheriff, the first assistant, or whatever the hell you want to call it.
It's that good old boy camaraderie. You know what I mean?
No, Tobe Lesby is still running the Carroll County Sheriff's Office. I guarantee you.
I know. I agree with you. That's why he put the person he did in charge. In my opinion.
Right. These are just our opinions.
You better throw up that banner, Joe. People will come at us later. Yeah, that's not a fact. About that. That's not a fact. Are you crazy? Like, good Lord, we're having a discussion, people. It's called a discussion.
Let's see. All right, there we go. Yeah. Boom. Got it.
Okay. All right. There we go. Salty can say what she wants. Put that up there. It's your channel. I don't want to get you in trouble. I'll be good.
Hey, good morning. Need some Z's. Good to see you in here. All right. TR at 11. Judge Diener also asked Lesenby to sign the safekeeping motion, which Lesenby did. TR at 12. Leaving aside the improper ex parte communications between Judge Diener and Sheriff Lesenby, adjusting the wording of a motion to be filed in his court and on which he would be ruling obviously constituted both reviewing and drafting a document which Indiana Judicial Conduct Rule 3.10 prohibits, except when done for family members. And I don't believe that Tobe Lesenby is a family member of Richard Allen or of Judge Diener. I don't know what family members refers to. Probably of the judge. They can do that for their own family members. I don't know. There are a lot of people related in Carroll County, but I don't think those two are related. Reviewing and adjusting the wording of a motion is most fundamentally the giving of legal advice, which Rule 3.10 also prohibits. See in R.E. Hill, a 2011 case. Quote unquote, the respondent admits the commission's allegation that his letter advised the couple on the legality and effectiveness of the documents he had reviewed. This constitutes the practice of law by giving legal advice. Mr. McClellan solicited then from Lesenby an affidavit saying Judge Diener had not given Lesenby legal advice when Mr. McClellan knew or should have known that it was simply not true. It is not all that different from letting Brad Weber's false testimony go uncorrected. In sum, in violation of Trial Rule 59H2, the crucial facts on which the state's response depends are outside the record and are unsupported by affidavit or even verification of the response itself by Mr. McClellan. The state's response also pervasively misstates the law and therefore misleads the court.
You know, it makes me wonder what they have on Weber to get him to come up there on that witness stand and lie like he did. You know, I mean, hey, we're going to do this to you. We're going to arrest you on that, or we're going to do this or that. You know, you don't just walk up to someone and say, hey, go testify to this. Okay. Oh, okay. Was it you know what I mean? What caused it?
Yeah. How did his false testimony magically jive with the state's timeline to convict Richard Allen?
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And who put him up to it?
In sum, in violation of Trial Rule 59H2, crucial facts, the state's response also pervasively misstates the law and therefore misleads the court. Finally, the one affidavit the state did submit in support of its response alleges facts Mr. McClellan knew or should have known are not true. For all these reasons, the court should order the state's response stricken from the record. For the foregoing reasons, Mr. Allen respectfully requests that the court strike the state's response from the record of this case and either vacate Mr. Allen's convictions or set his motion to correct error for hearing. Mr. Allen also requests any other appropriate relief. Whew. There's a lot of stuff in there. That took a little minute to get through. I'm going to have to take a break in a minute before we get into that other one, but I'm going to pull it up anyway.
Yes, I know reading documents is like, it's tiring.
Yes.
Like, somebody help me here.
Good morning, 857. Good to see you in here.
Welcome in, guys.
Let's see. Let's go back to that. So the next one we have is the verified motion preserve and produce specific evidence. And this is related to Mr. Baldwin's trip to the Newcastle Correctional Facility to visit Mr. Ricky Davis. I've always heard it Ricky. Ricky, if I'm mispronouncing your name, I don't give a shit. Oops,
Right.
Did I say that out loud?
I think that Baldwin actually went and saw him twice.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yep.
Where did it go? Oh, it's on the next. See, all of my PDFs show up. Sorry, the dogs are being stupid. They'll bark at a freaking leaf blowing across the yard. All right. The defendant's verified motion to preserve and produce specific evidence. I apologize. The resolution on that is not as good as the last one, but it came to me this way, so I can still read it. It was filed yesterday at 4:21 p.m. Richard Ellen, by counsel, now comes before the court with his verified motion. I still want to know what the difference between a verified motion and a regular motion are. Anyway, to this court to order the state of Indiana to preserve certain specific evidence and to produce that evidence to the defense. In support of the motion, Richard Allen states the following. On February 12th, 2025, so that was Wednesday, Richard Allen's counsel, Andrew Baldwin, met with inmate Ricky Davis at the Newcastle Correctional Facility. During that meeting, Mr. Davis informed attorney Baldwin of the following. He, Ricky Davis, was in the unique position of having met both Keegan Klein and Ron Logan during their stays at Newcastle Correctional Facility.
It's fixing to get real interesting.
This is my first read through this. Like, I haven't even perused this, so I have no idea what it's going to say.
I skimmed through it.
B. Ricky Davis talked with Ron Logan about the Delphi murders on multiple occasions. Over the course of time, Logan confessed to his involvement in the murders along with two other people.
Boom.
Ooh, wow. During those conversations, Logan provided certain details of the crime that only the actual killer would know, but never divulged who the other two people involved in the murders were. Wow. I don't remember seeing this in any of the previous filings. Do you?
Nope. But Sleuthie and All Eyes may have more information about that, but I do not.
Hey, Krisha, welcome in. Good to see you in here.
Welcome in, girl.
In or around March of 2024, Keegan Klein was placed in the same general area as Ricky Davis, and at some point apparently learned that Ricky Davis had talked to Ron Logan while Logan was incarcerated in Newcastle. Over time, Klein began questioning Ricky Davis as to Ricky Davis's conversation with Ron Logan and whether Logan had ever mentioned Keegan Klein's name to Ricky Davis during those conversations. Paragraph F. I'm sorry, I'm digesting this as I'm reading it. And
I get it.
Ricky Davis began to realize that Klein may have been one of the other members of the crew that Logan described as being involved in the murders. Over time, Keegan Klein began to reveal information about the Delphi murders that corroborated details Ron Logan had revealed to Ricky Davis several years earlier. Some of the details Keegan Klein provided to Ricky Davis are the types of details that could only be known by someone involved in the killings. Holy smokes.
Mm-hmm.
These conversations between Ricky Davis and Keegan Klein occurred all the way up to the guilty verdict, at which time Klein expressed his relief that he would no longer be a viable suspect in the murders due to Richard Allen's conviction. Not knowing whether Richard Allen would be the third person involved in the murders, Ricky Davis asked Keegan Klein whether Miss Allen was the third person involved in the murders. Klein replied that Richard Allen was not the third person and had nothing to do with the murders.
Who was the third person?
My brain just went there, boom, and I'm not going to say it out loud. Let's see where we go with this. I have a pretty good idea though, and people have made that connection before, and their phones were supposedly at their house at the time of the murders. Keegan Klein further revealed to Ricky Davis that he, Klein, and Logan knew each other through the sharing of CP that they shared on burner phones, and that further they, Klein and Logan, would see each other every 3 to 6 months so that Klein could assist Logan with using their burner phones because Logan was inept working with electronic devices. In other words, he's not pulling the battery out of an iPhone.
No, and Keegan, when he did some interviews a long time ago and got sent off to prison, he's like, one day I'll talk more about the Delphi situation, as if he knew more, right? So I got to wondering, and especially reading through this document, they don't have any video camera footage of the, Klein out there that day, but he didn't have to be on the bridge. He could have been on Logan's property. Then he wouldn't have been seen on the bridge. The only one that happened to be seen on the bridge anywhere near those girls was Rick Allen. So were they not able to tie Klein to the crime scene? Y'all could have if you'd have tested some of that DNA.
Well, if he admitted to having burner phones,
well, considering what they were doing,
did they get rid of those burner phones though? And ISP checked the location of their actual phones, which they left at home.
If they did say if they had their burner phones with them, those numbers would have been captured in that geofence.
Yeah,
and worth investigating.
Right. So how much trouble did law enforcement go to track down those burner phones? Because usually people that use burner phones get caught because the police will go backwards in time to where those phones were bought, and they will check the security footage at that place. Was it the Walmart in Lafayette where Rick Allen worked at one time? Did they get their burner phones from there? And did ISP and Carroll County Sheriff's Office go and check that footage to see if they could identify who purchased that from the security footage? I'm guessing no, because of all the other things that they didn't do.
And the fact that they know that the account that Keegan was running, the Anthony Shots account, communicated with Libby the night before and the morning of, is highly suspicious. And if there's burner phones involved, could multiple people have access to that same account and pretending to be this Anthony Shots character, and giving Ron's location to the bridge, luring the girls out there is perfect. And I no longer, I don't take the Odinist off the table completely, but once I read through this document, was skimming through it, I started having a different theory developing in my head, but I'm still not there yet.
Well, CP was where we all went initially, especially when I heard about Anthony Shots and Keegan Klein. Mm-hmm. We went to CP, like is that what they're doing with the girls? And then when we heard that the girls weren't SA'd, we're like, well, what was it then? And that's when we all started going down the Odinist trail.
Did things get out of hand to a point where the SA couldn't have been the girls fighting back, trying to get away, things like that, and then it just turned into something different before they even had a chance to SA? Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Because Libby wasn't going down without a fight, obviously.
Right. All right, I think we're up to paragraph K. Keegan Klein further revealed to Ricky Davis that he, Klein, and Logan knew each other through the sharing of CP. We already went about that. Assisted him with his burner phone was inept with working with electronic devices. L. Ricky Davis further explained that once Keegan Kline began revealing his role in the murders sometime in the summer and fall of 2024, before Mr. Allen's October trial, he, Ricky Davis, began sending letters to Nick McClelland providing many details of his conversations with Keegan Kline in 2024 and Ron Logan in 2017. Ricky Davis indicated that he believes he sent as many as 8 letters to McClelland's office, hereinafter the quote-unquote Davis letters, and presumed that McClelland was sharing the contents of those letters with Richard Allen's defense team. He presumed that McClelland was sharing those letters. Attorney Baldwin met with Ricky Davis on March 27th of 2024 and learned very limited information from Ricky Davis, who encouraged Baldwin to watch a videotaped interview law enforcement conducted years earlier. At their February 12, 2025 meeting, so this is the one that just happened on last Wednesday, Ricky Davis further admitted that when Attorney Baldwin met with Ricky Davis the previous March, that he, Ricky Davis, did not provide all of the details that he knew at that time to Attorney Baldwin for 2 reasons. One, he, Ricky Davis, had not heard of the many details that Keegan Kline ultimately provided him, including that Keegan Kline was involved in the crime and that he, Keegan Kline, knew Ron Logan. And 2, at that time, he met with Attorney Baldwin in 2024. He, Ricky Davis, could not be sure whether Richard Allen was one of the other 2 people that Ron Logan described as also being involved in the murders. Mr. Davis stated that he was guarded during their March 27, 2024 meeting with Mr. Baldwin because he, Ricky Davis, did not necessarily want to assist Richard Allen's defense counsel if he, Richard Allen, was one of the 3 men that Ron Logan stated was involved in the murders. So, again, in the March 2024 meeting with Baldwin, so that was last year, before the trial, before the pretrial hearings, Ricky Davis told Baldwin that he, Baldwin, could learn the details of what Ricky Davis told law enforcement by watching the videotaped interview, and that law enforcement should have in their possession from when law enforcement, interviewed him, Ricky Davis, sometime years before. And then in their February 12th meeting, Ricky Davis was shocked to learn that Baldwin had never received the videotaped interview. Are you freaking kidding me? But there's no nexus. Okay. And he may be lying. He may be making it all up. Keegan Kline, we know, is a verified liar. Let's see where Mr. Baldwin takes us down this path. Item 3, following his March 27, 2024 visit with Ricky Davis, the next day, March 28, 2024, at 11:49 p.m., Attorney Baldwin emailed both Nick McClelland and Stacy Diener, so she's co-counsel for the state, requesting that they turn over law enforcement's videotaped interview of Ricky Davis, in which Davis presumably provided the details of Ron Logan's confessions. Sorry, I'm going to catch up with chat for just a second. I got to take a break from reading. Kresha, I was there for the 3rd day of the 3-day hearings before the trial, and that day was a lot about the occult and what they often call odinous. But there were people that got on the stand, and the prison guards too said, "Well, we're not Odinist. There's no such thing as Odinist. We worship the lesser Norse gods," or something like that. So Odinist is the word that's thrown around a lot in this trial, but it's Asatru is actually closer to what they call their religion. But there was a deep dive into that in that hearing on August 1st. There was a deep dive.
What they were doing was they combined different things to form their little religion. And the Asatru and the Odinists, they do worship Odin. Well, I can care what they tell y'all, but just because people say, well, because when this thing first happened, I was in a stream and they were talking about this, and they had to go down this whole They literally stopped talking about the case and went into how pagans aren't bad. Well, I get that, but these particular people were practicing something that they shouldn't have been practicing to an extent. They were incorporating white supremacy and everything else they could grab onto that they wanted to believe in into their form. And the Azatru religion, whatever they want to call themselves, they're on the Southern Poverty Law Center watch list because of what they do and are capable of. There's like Joe said, there's been a whole deep dive and people get it construed sometimes, I think, but it's just easier to say Odinism here because that's basically what it was, incorporated with a bunch of different things, because even if you take paganism into it, I completely understand pagans aren't bad. They're not witches, they're not devil worshippers and all those things, some can be, I'm sure, just like there's bad people in normal religions. So it's just one of those things.
Yeah, and the motorcycle club, quote unquote club that they called themselves was the Vinlanders. And I'm from Lafayette, and I have driven many times up to Delphi. And the last time that I went up to, actually, we had to go up to Allen County, which is up in Fort Wayne. I driving up the Hoosier Heartland corridor. It's a guy on a motorcycle wearing a Vinlanders vest passed me and drove away from me.
Yep.
But it very clearly was a Vinlander vest. I mean, it's real.
I remember that day. Joe's like, "You're not going to believe this," and he told me. I was like, "For real?" He's like, "Yeah," and including the attorney that was put on the case. When the original attorneys were removed by Gull, and the other attorney put on. He talks about that, how he went to Delphi, and they would have tire covers over their back spare tires on the Jeeps, proclaiming who they were and what they were about, and that it was a very real thing there. It's a culture there almost. A lot of people, I think, that we don't want to know about were involved in that type of stuff. But does that mean they're all people who would go off into the woods and do these things? Or did the youngins in the group get out of hand? That kind of thing crossed my mind in the beginning. But I'm at a point now, I'm not so sure Odinism was involved, especially reading through this document.
Yeah, and I think it's all going to come down to the credibility of Ricky Davis. I mean, and Keegan Kline. I mean, we know Keegan Kline is a proven liar. And Ricky Davis supposedly, quote unquote, miserably failed a polygraph. So
that doesn't matter to me. I'm sorry. Polygraphs aren't even admissible in court.
No,
all the experts
they're just
have
like
yeah.
They're like sketches. They're a tool.
And if you're a nervous person, like, some people are going to say, oh, well, he was doing it because he, wanted to get out of jail or to benefit himself. Yeah, that could be true too. But what he's saying could also be true.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That supposedly, Kresha, also that the Vinlanders have ties to Arizona somehow, that somehow supposedly some founding members of it moved to Indiana from Arizona, and they were members of something similar out here in like the Phoenix area or the Tucson area. I can't remember exactly what that was.
There's probably branches all over the country.
Well, there are white supremacist groups all over the country for sure, and there are a lot of motorcycle gangs with ties to the drug trade.
And they also know, if you look into it, there is a huge problem in Indiana prisons with these Odinist gangs, right? It's documented, actually. And then lo and behold, you got prison guards also members.
Yeah.
Proven in affidavits.
Yep. All right. Where are we at? So after Mr. Baldwin talked with Ricky, and Ricky says that he was kind of guarded because Rick Allen hadn't been convicted yet, hadn't even gone to trial yet, and he wasn't sure if he was the third member. So he was guarded in that 2024 conversation with Andy Baldwin. But he did tell him about the videotaped interview, and that very next day, Mr. Baldwin requested that from the prosecutor, a copy of that videotape.
And Chris is asking about the Freemasonry, and yes, Nick McClelland and one of our alternate suspects both are members of Freemasonry. I've got pictures. It's all well documented. But yes, ma'am, they were part of the Freemasonry there, and I'm willing to bet judges and lawyers, etc., were also members. If Nick was a member and Brad Holder was also a member, I'm sure there were many, many, many more.
Yeah, we do have to get comfortable talking about uncomfortable things. In this case, we'll bring it out. Like, there has been a lot to digest in this case. There's a lot to digest in Lori Daybell's case. There's a lot to digest in Brian Koberger's case. A lot of uncomfortable.
Yeah, like I said, there's going to be a lot of topics. This is true crime. And when we read out of documents and stuff, it's not like, there's going to be uncomfortable subjects, but I choose this genre and I don't mind having the conversations about them, and I think that it can be done in a classy adult way, and to talk about it. Like you're saying, it's just, it's some of the stuff is what it is. Even when I was reading through all the Maddie Soto stuff, it was difficult, but it's there. Do you know what I mean? You can't get around it.
Yeah, and now to have him filing to have all that thrown out. Oh.
Yeah, good luck with that, Stefan.
All right. So
you're in Florida, Bubba, not Indiana.
Right. So we found out on March 20th, 2024, defense attorney Baldwin filed or requested a copy of the videotape of that interview with Ricky Davis, where he talks about Ron Logan's confessions. And to date, the prosecution has never provided any videotaped Ricky Davis interview to the defense, nor explained why it has not done so, nor stated that no such videotape exists, and have ignored the request. Wow. The approximate
like
8 letters.
When people wanted to come at anybody who questioned Rick's innocence or guilt, it's like, can y'all just read, some of this stuff doesn't make sense. And every time they tried to give us an answer, we just had more questions. If you'd have come out and gave us something solid, and not danced around the questions or, any of that, it may have had a different outcome. But they caused a lot of this, in my opinion, by being so sketchy. And then we have to, of course, wonder why. Why are y'all doing this all the way through? It's insane.
Yeah. Gilletta, welcome in. Prosecutorial absolute immunity. You missed us reading the prior document, which Mr. Baldwin said that perhaps Mr. McClelland should be held criminally liable, was it? I forget what was that he said. Yeah, that the court should consider holding him guilty of some type of unethical or perhaps illegal behavior.
Yeah, and there's been, I know it varies state to state, but there have been prosecutors that get in a lot of trouble. They don't just get blanket immunity. It may be different in Indiana, though. This is Indiana, so.
And not just Indiana, but Carroll County, Indiana.
Right. They're going to be like, nope, Nick's safe. He's excluded. He's grandfathered into some bullshit.
All right. So then he starts to talk about the letters, the approximate 8 letters that Ricky Davis claims he sent to McClelland in the months leading up to the October 2024 trial would contain multiple layers of exculpatory evidence, which the defense could have used to further its investigation and maybe get closer to a nexus. Maybe that's my words.
We need to get those letters produced.
As to whether certain facts contained in those letters could be verified through crime scene photographs, digital data, and a variety of other means. Defense counsel has never seen the Davis letters nor known of their existence until after the trial, when defense counsel met with Mr. Davis on February 12, 2025. Also, the prosecutor has never informed the defense counsel of the existence of any such letters. And we're just going to put those in the bottom of a drawer We're going to put that in the bottom of Kathy Shank's drawer.
Kathy's got all that. Damn it, man.
She likes to keep those things.
She holds all the secrets, don't she, Doug?
Yes, she does.
He gave them all to Kathy. Put them in your box, baby. Put them in your box.
On the evening of February 12, 2025, so this would have been following his visit with Ricky Davis, defense counsel Baldwin sent an email to Nick McClelland and his in-house investigator, Steve Mullen. Oh, we got stories about Steve Mullen. Requested not Doug Carter level stories, but we still have stories.
Yeah.
How did he go from being the Delphi police chief to being the prosecutor's lead investigator?
Well, who the hell knows?
Baldwin sent an email to Nick and the investigator Steve Mullen requesting they produce both the Davis those letters. There's a little bit of a typo there, and any video recording in their possession of an interview with Ricky Davis. McClelland's response was vague, non-responsive to the defense request, and did not indicate whether he ever received those letters, nor what. I want to see that response that Nick had, because we've seen his response to me. Did not indicate whether he, McClelland, ever received those letters, nor whether he sent those letters to the defense. In other words, McClelland neither confirmed nor denied the existence of said letters. Neither did he confirm or deny that he provided those aforementioned Ricky Davis letters to defense counsel. On February 13th, so Thursday, at 3:54 p.m., Attorney Baldwin sent another email to McClelland asking straightforward questions. Did you receive multiple letters from Ricky Davis in the months leading up to Richard Allen's trial? And if so, did you turn those letters over to the defense? These should be questions easily answered and quickly answered. If McClelland never received such letters, he should have known that answer immediately, since Ricky Davis claims that he sent the letters directly to Nick McClelland. If McClelland did receive such letters, he should have known the answer immediately.
Yep.
Furthermore, if he did receive such letters, he should very quickly be able to identify the dates that he sent those letters to the defense and how he sent them to the defense. As of the time of the filing of this document, so that was February 14th at 4:50 something p.m., McClelland has failed to answer these simple, straightforward questions. The defense reviewed all e-discovery from March 2024 to the present to determine whether the prosecution provided the Davis letters to the defense. To determine if those letters were hidden among the other discovery, the defense found no such letters penned by Ricky Davis addressed to Nick McClelland in the e-discovery. The defense has reviewed all emails during the applicable time frame to determine whether McClelland ever forwarded an email with attached letters from Ricky Davis. No such emails exist. So they didn't get provided an e-discovery. They didn't get emailed.
Nope, Nick's just like, these letters are not important. They come from a convict.
Right. The defense requests that the court order McClelland's office, as well as any law enforcement agency, to preserve any letters from Ricky Davis in their possession and further to turn them over to the defense immediately. The defense similarly requests the court order McClelland's office, as well as any law enforcement agency, to preserve any video recording of an interview with Ricky Davis in their possession, and further to turn such video recordings over to the defense immediately. What are the odds? What are the odds that video got recorded over or something?
Yeah. You know how they love to do that there. Wasn't their fault. The button wasn't turned on, or we didn't know it was recording over, and da-da-da.
Yeah. We forgot to record the Miranda warning.
And we haven't apologized to the community for losing evidence, and we never apologized for letting a killer walk free for 5 years and depending on a little old lady to find a tip in a box. Because without that tip in the box, they would never arrested Rick Allen. We still have nobody. So they didn't investigate this to the point 5 years, we got our man. No. You couldn't find your man until Kathy found that tip. And then y'all are like, oh, duh. I mean, come on. You didn't do a good investigation. You just didn't. Otherwise, y'all would have went back and followed up with Rick Allen. Doolin should have remembered his interviews with Allen and told, the authorities, hey, that guy I interviewed that day. We need to look at him.
That admitted that he was out there. He admitted he was out there. He interviewed a guy that admitted to being at the bridge and just forgot about it for 5.5 years.
No. Did Doolin not think that Allen favored the sketches enough to say, well, that might be the guy? I'm not saying that's Rick Allen in the sketches. I'm saying there's a little bit of similarity, but not much. I think Holder looks way more like that sketch. And also, there's another one that Chadwell could also pass for bridge guy, I think. But, did Doolin in his mind, the whole time they got all these pictures plastered everywhere in these sketches, he never thought, that guy that I interviewed kind of might be a little similar. Like, weird.
And nobody in town thought that he looked like
nobody
for 5.5 years.
And wasn't that CVS like the only pharmacy in town? There might have been a mom and pop shop there, but that was the only major pharmacy. So almost everybody got prescriptions there, and almost everybody ran into Rick Allen there.
I don't even think there was a mom and pop pharmacy shop in town. I think that was the only pharmacy in town.
Right.
Like
So everybody was going to the CVS, and they had the picture hanging up in the CVS. And nobody ever said, well, you know what? He might be that guy.
Yeah, nobody, nothing. I was in court the day that Kathy Schenck testified. And I swear to you, I stood up. We went on morning break after her testimony, and I stood up and went, what did I just hear? And Andrea Burkhart happened to be sitting like 2 spots down from me. And I turned to her and I'm like, can you explain that to me? And she kind of tried to explain it to me, how she understood Kathy's testimony, and it still doesn't make sense to me. And it still doesn't make sense to me today. Still does not make sense to me to this day. And she is a sweet old lady, and maybe she is very well intentioned. I don't know. I don't know who's getting the reward money for finding that tip, but
she didn't want the reward money. She's wanted it donated to the park, but there's other things about her and ties to that community and Freemasonry and stuff like that. Okay. So there's that.
Yeah. And I almost had to catch her falling down the stairs. Almost. All right. Item 14.
Her daughter makes, I don't mean to interrupt, but that girl, Kathy's daughter makes some really strange posts on Twitter. She came out right after the trial was ended, like, yay, the gag order's gone. My mom caught the Delphi killer. And then she's done nothing but make strange posts since then. Like, crazy.
Yeah. Kresha, you're not alone. There are a lot of people that believe that Richard Allen was guilty. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know if he was involved or if he wasn't involved. But I do know that the police investigation was a really horribly shabby, possibly corrupt police investigation. And that all we got was word salads from Doug Carter, the superintendent of ISP, and Nick McClelland standing up and saying things in court that just aren't true. Like, there needs to be DNA evidence of a third-party suspect at the scene to provide a nexus. That's not true.
Well, I mean, after 5 years of investigating and they find the tip that he claimed, where he stated I was out there, there's your perfect fall guy. And then they all of a sudden, that guy way back in the distance in the Snapchat photos, all of a sudden is boom, now he's right there behind the girls. It all became, it's very sketchy.
And I will listen to I will listen to people that say that he was found guilty by the jury and therefore he's guilty, but that still doesn't convince me that he's factually guilty. Is he legally, judicially guilty right now? Yes. Is he factually guilty? I don't know.
Yeah, but we also know that the jury was not privy to a lot of stuff. A lot. Yeah. And they were experts that were denied by the defense to bring up. So they're only getting a one-sided story, basically. And they, believed the enhanced video. Because the jury did come back, had questions, wanted to review more stuff. It's hard to make a call on this one because we weren't able to see the damn trial. But yeah, he didn't get a fair trial. And there's just, if they had opened up that courtroom and made it more public, I would have felt a lot better about it. I appreciated all the attorneys and Joe, all the ones that were there trying to bring us all the actual updates, but it's not the same as seeing it all. I would have loved to have seen the Bridge Guy video myself with the one they played in court. Because even the way Lawyer Lee and them describe it, he's way back there, and then all of a sudden, boom, there he is. It's like, how do you do that? It's a lot. It's just a lot.
It is a lot. And so they had 24 seats open to the public, 12 to the quote unquote credentialed media. And sometimes we didn't even get 24 seats as the public. Sometimes it was as low as 16 seats.
Yeah.
But when they would play those exhibits like that, like Bridge Guy video, they had the TV face or the monitor as like a big, like 60-inch monitor, but they had it facing the jury. So it was perpendicular to the gallery. So the people who are on the right side that were like sitting on the jury side of it got a better view of it. And the one time they did the enhanced video, I was actually kind of on the aisle on the left side. So I kind of got a look at it, but I got one look at it. They didn't like keep playing it to be able to figure it out.
Right.
Like what did Tony Liggett hear? Can we have those magic headphones that he was wearing to hear what he heard?
Yeah, and even in an interview, I heard Becky Patty say that, they have to put on the headphones and all this. Well, was the audio you were hearing manipulated at that point? I don't know. But, I don't think they have a clear picture of what was said.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But Tony Liggett did. He said, I know exactly. He got up on the stand and he said, I know exactly what I heard. And it was not humanly possible that another person was on the south end of that bridge to take the girls down the hill.
Like nobody could just, okay. Not humanly possible. Then that means nobody could have crossed the bridge if it's not humanly possible for somebody else to be down there. What does he mean by that? What does that even mean? Not humanly possible. Shit, Brad Weber lived right there at the end. He could have walked up there. So yeah, it is humanly possible. There's a driveway right below. Come park your car and climb up the hill. You're there. Humanly possible.
Where Brad Weber's van just drove. Brad Weber's van drove by this within 10 feet, 12 feet of the south end of that bridge within minutes of the girls being there.
Yeah.
So don't tell me it's not humanly.
It's them. Like I said, they continuously tried to insult our intelligence throughout this process.
But how you can get on the stand and testify to that and not be held accountable for saying something that's stupid that just defies law? But you know what? The jury
I'd have been breaking out the maps and been like, look, no, it is humanly possible. Look, come on, let's go and I'll show you how. I probably got Judge Gull would have thrown me off that case so fast, and she would have never let me back on.
Yeah, Kresha, Rick Allen actually did have a habit of rolling his eyes, like. For the trial, he was allowed to come in street clothes, and he had his glasses perched on the top of his head, his reading glasses. And I actually never saw him pull them down. But for that August 1st hearing that I was at, he was actually brought in his orange jail jumpsuit and in shackles with like 6 deputy sheriffs. And they came in the back door of the courtroom, and I was sitting in the back of the courtroom, and he passed within like 5 feet of me. And he was rolling his eyes. He was kind of like rolling his eyes and rolling his head. And he was like making some weird faces at the gallery. And I don't know if he was doing it intentionally or if he was on some type of medication, but it wasn't what I would call normal behavior. But he does have a habit of rolling his eyes based on my observation. That doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean he's guilty. Doesn't mean that
Look, I
the
roll
judge
my
didn't get
eyes,
irritated.
especially if I hear something I don't like. My face is a dead giveaway. Like, I can't hide what I'm thinking most of the time. And I'll be rolling my eyes constantly. Like, oh my God, are you serious right now? But who knows what his demeanor was like, or even, if there was any meds involved, or maybe you're to a point where you're just like, I hope, all this shit's being said about me and it's ridiculous. Who knows why he was rolling his eyes. But the judge wanted to make sure she pointed that out to everybody, that Rick rolled his eyes. That makes him a killer. There we go with that damn body language.
Yeah. Yep.
My eye rolling don't make me no killer.
It wasn't like he was rolling his eyes and he was rolling his head. Like it was not normal behavior. And it doesn't mean anything to me. It's just an observation as somebody who was in the courtroom, and he was like, sitting within 5 feet of where he walked by while he was doing it. So
yeah,
I didn't know what to make of it, but I did ask a couple
but
of
was
other
he
people.
rolling his head and his eyes at the same time, or?
Yes, he was.
Okay, was he
Yes.
rolling his head to stretch his neck out? What do you mean rolling his head?
I don't make me go on camera to show you. I don't want to go on camera this morning. I have to call in my makeup crew. Just like
your glam squad, you need the glam squad. Yeah, so I'm trying to picture rolling his head like side to side or rolling it in a circle, because I be rolling my neck constantly. It should be tight and hurting.
Yeah,
so
it's possible. There were a lot of possible explanations for it. It was just, to me, standing right there, it was bizarre behavior.
Gotcha.
Nystagmus. Gillette, is that nystagmus? And yes, he was involuntarily injected with drugs. I don't remember that he was necessarily for the July, August hearings, 3-day hearings. I think the last injection he had was like June, if I remember right, but who knows?
Difficult. Krisha, I hear you, girl. I hear you. Yeah, who knows, right? I mean,
yeah. It was just an observation. I'm not saying that it means anything important, but we do know that he was involuntarily medicated as late as
we do know that
June. Yes,
that was in court documents, and they have still not been able to find out what meds they were injecting him with. We know some of it. He was being put on some serious medications while he was in the Westville, and that's when things started getting really crazy with him. As far as his demeanor, the behavior he was exhibiting, and things of that nature.
Well, that's when he started confessing, was when the 2 Odinist guards showed up.
Started eating his feces, started doing all the bizarre stuff, checked out his brain, because they got you so doped up on these serious medications. I have a problem with all of that. Because if his behavior didn't start until he began to get medicated, according to court documents.
Right.
And think about it. If you're not used to these types of, hardcore medications, and all of a sudden you are on them and you don't even realize it, you may not even be aware of what the hell's happening to me. You know what I mean? What am I feeling? There's all kinds of things that go into play there.
There are, and we have more things that are in play now because of these 2 filings yesterday. We have a lot more to think about. Like, you're already reconsidering your Odinist angle. I'm like, wait, no, don't leave that yet. That's so much fun to explore.
Dude, I've explored it for so long, and it's bothered me for so long, and you can't. It's like with Idaho rabbit holes. I gotta pick one. Either I'm going to go with Odinism, or am I going to go with Ron, Logan, and Klein? I can't go with all of them unless Logan and Klein are part of the Odinism gang, and they were all out there together.
And I don't think we know that. I think the Odinism angle was different third-party suspects. I don't. Keegan Klein and Ron Logan were the CP angle.
Exactly. So if they're not tied to Odinism in any way, that takes Odinism off the table for me if I want to now believe these two guys were somehow involved, if I'm believing Ricky's statements.
Right.
That's where I'm at right now.
All right. So item 14. The defense is concerned that without an order from the court, the prosecution and or law enforcement may lose the Davis letters. We're going to, quote unquote, lose them. I'm surprised he didn't put that in quotes. Law enforcement, the prosecutor and or law enforcement may, quote unquote, I'm putting my own quotes around that, lose the Davis letters, as well as the videotaped interview of Ricky Davis, or the state of Indiana may refuse to turn them over to the defense. The defense's concern is well-founded based upon law enforcement's history in this case. Oh, boys, bringing up their history. That's not fair. That's like hitting below the belt, bringing up your history. Law enforcement's history in this case of losing evidence as documented before, during trial, and during trial, including claiming that they taped over certain important videotaped interviews. I just brought that up like, oh, it's probably been half an hour now since I brought that up, but dang, he's bringing up their history. What? You can't do that. The defense can produce a witness with admissible evidence that in the months before Mr. Allen's trial, the prosecution received some number of letters from Ricky Davis and that those letters had been given to the people investigating the case. The defense had a constitutional right to know the existence of the Davis letters so that the defense could conduct its own investigation concerning the content of those letters, including conducting depositions that would naturally flow from the facts alleged in those letters. Had the defense known of the Davis letters before trial, it could have used those letters to further its investigation, present them to this court at the hearing on August 1st, that's the one that I was at, on third-party suspect culpability, and factor the information contained in those letters into its trial strategy. Had the defense received those letters after the verdict, then the defense could have incorporated those letters in the motion to correct error. So there's these letters floating around that Ricky Davis said he sent McClellan, and in item 16, let's reread item 16 one more time. The defense can produce a witness with admissible evidence that in the months before Mr. Allen's trial, the prosecution received some number of letters from Ricky Davis and that those letters had been given to people investigating the case. So I wonder if he supported that with, like, if he's saying that Nick needed to file an affidavit with his response to the motion to correct, does he need to file an affidavit for item number 16 there? Should you not go ahead and produce your witness? I think he should. Let's all see who this witness is and how many or how they are testifying to, but it's admissible evidence, he says. So Nick's hiding something or Ricky's a big fat liar. But
it's the way you said that, sorry.
It's okay. I mean, it's either or. It's either or.
Yep. Well, what would Ricky have gotten out of it if anything had come out of it? Would they have let him out of prison? You know, I mean, because a lot of times these jailhouse people, a lot of times other inmates will confess things to other inmates because they think they got that camaraderie, you know, we're not snitches. So we can tell each other our stuff. And then one's like, you know what, I got stuff on him. Now maybe I can use this to help me get out early. Things like that happen. That does happen. But that doesn't mean Ricky's not telling the truth here. How long was Ricky going to be in for, right? Would he have benefited from telling any of this at all? So if he wasn't going to benefit from telling all this, why would he come out and say any of it?
Right. I guess you never know for sure what's going on in somebody's head. And there definitely needs to be some corroboration of some kind. And having that Videotaped interview would probably be helpful. Having those letters would probably be helpful.
It'd be real helpful. Extremely helpful if they existed. And if they existed, where are they? You can't continue to get away with we lost stuff, recorded over stuff. Oh, we don't have it anymore. You cannot continue to get away with that. All that's going to bite them in the ass. Well, until the appeal process, maybe. Because the higher courts ain't going to play around. I hope not in Indiana anyway. I don't know much about the higher courts there, but, you know, you would think that they wouldn't. I mean, we've seen prosecutors get in trouble in plenty of other cases. It's not like they have immunity from that they can get up there and do what they want and tell lies and do whatever they want and have no consequences. That's not true.
Yeah. Hey, Ro, good morning. Welcome in. You're late to the party. We've gone through 2 documents already.
Hello, hello.
And we watched somebody get swallowed by a whale.
I forgot about that.
Conclusion. For the foregoing reasons, the defendant respectfully requests that the court order the prosecution and any law enforcement agency, how about every law enforcement agency, to preserve any letters from Ricky Davis in their possession, to immediately turn over to the defense any letters from Ricky Davis in their possession, to preserve any video recordings of interviews with Ricky Davis in their possession, and 4, to immediately turn over to the defense any video recordings of interviews with Ricky Davis in their possession. 5, to preserve all records in whatever form and communications. Oh my gosh, he should not have put number 5 in there. And I'll tell you why in a second as soon as I finish. To preserve all records in whatever form and communications, electronic or other, including emails and text messages pertaining to Ricky Davis. Nick McClellan is going to say item number 5 is too broad. That's too broad for us to comply with. Because it says all records. We have to preserve all records in whatever form. That's too broad. I think he said that in his response to the motion to correct error. I'm pretty sure he said something in there about it being too broad, or maybe no, it was a former motion to preserve evidence, because the defense has filed a motion to preserve evidence in the past, and Nick's argument was it's too broad, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah. There's just seems like there's always so much to unpack, you know, and the more these filings come out and the more they discover, you know, in this stuff. And I really want to see these letters and this video of Ricky Davis. You know, and I'm not saying this guy's telling the absolute truth, but he did get to talk to both Klein and Logan, and there are still a lot of people out there convinced that Ron Logan did this, and for a good reason. You know, FBI was convinced he did it at one point. They were the ones who got the search warrants for his property, not the local sheriff's department. Like, they didn't even immediately get it. You know, the girls were found on your property. We need a search warrant now. Well, they're so far out there, that's not, you know, no, they're on your property. We need a search warrant. Got to rule you out. Got to get you done. But they didn't. The FBI served that warrant on Ron Logan. And then, of course, we know he lied and all that good stuff.
Yeah, he created a false alibi, which I should say, originally dismissed because he had that, you know, the multiple DUIs, and he wasn't supposed to have a vehicle. He wasn't supposed to be driving, right. And he did that day. So I was like, okay, well, I understand why he lied. He doesn't want to get busted. And he did end up getting busted for that and sent down to Newcastle, where he met Ricky Davis.
Yeah. Interesting.
Very interesting. Well, that's about all I have for today. You're going to go live tonight, right? You have members only?
Yeah, I am. I'm not sure of the time yet. My kiddos are gone over to their dad's today. After what happened yesterday and everything, they're good to go. So I was working on my getting some more stuff set up for the show. But yes, we are going to have a members only live later that I've been promising them. and we're going to take a little deep dive into the Rex Heuermann Gilgo Beach murders case. So, yeah, we're going to do that later. Like I said, I'm not quite sure yet what time, but I'll make my decision here in just a little bit.
All right.
And of course,
are you doing Salty Sunday tomorrow?
Doing Salty Sunday, and I got a big document drop on the Mickey Steins, the sheriff of Letcher County who shot the judge. The deposition that he gave days before the shooting, I have the entire deposition now. And so I think we're going to be discussing that tomorrow's show. And
Right.
I haven't checked the docket in Idaho. I checked it last night. I don't think anything came down yesterday evening, after closing hours. And so I haven't checked this morning. But yeah, I think that's what we're going to be doing.
All right. Good deal. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, everybody, for dropping in chat. Appreciate seeing all of you in here and going through these documents together and talking through some uncomfortable things for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, we got a lot more to think about.
Right. Always. All right. Yeah. Thank you guys for all coming in and hanging out this morning and checking this out with us. We do appreciate it. You guys make sure you hit that like button.
All right. And we're going to leave off with another Charlie video. So he had this thing where he would get a skin infection on a regular basis. And I gave him meds for it. And the vet gave me meds for it. And it was always just kind of a lingering problem. But he liked to roll on his back kind of like corgis do because he was part corgi. So we're going to leave off with just a really short video. It's only a few seconds long of him rolling in the grass to scratch his back. And then we'll catch you on the flip side. That's it. Just a real short one. I've got other ones. We'll watch some other time. But everybody have a great weekend.